All right, y'all. Shalom, 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 shalom. Uh, you're watching Spiritual Combat. We have a great show for you today. Um, as you can see by the title, it's No Pain, No Progress, the cost of spiritual growth. Okay. Um, and what we're going to be talking about is, are you truly ready to grow? Um, this Bible, what we're going to be teaching about is genuine spiritual growth, mental, personal development, all these types of growths and developments. It comes with friction and pain. It requires you to step out of your comfort zone. And we're really gonna dive deep into this because I think it's part of friction, pain, all that stuff is part of the growth and development process. So the way we're gonna start this out, um, what I've been doing, because I've been talking about this with saints in the assembly, and with the brothers, particularly in the assembly as a whole. And what I did, I asked the brothers, um, what initially drew them to the ministry. And, consistently, I got certain answers back. Um, One of the things was they saw the word of God actively lived out in a way they hadn't seen anywhere else. And I also asked them what their first impression or impressions of the ministry were, and a lot of them highlighted that it was a masculine ministry. The men were operating in their biblically masculine roles, and the women were operating um, in their biblical feminine roles. They also mentioned that they saw the biblical principles. They weren't just preached; they were actually demonstrated. Um, they they saw. I, I asked them the same thing concerning the leadership and pastor, and again, they were saying they saw spiritually, mentally, physically, uh, socially, on all the different levels. They saw where the Bible was truly being implemented and lived out. Spiritually, you see deliverance, spiritual gifts, and a strong emphasis on spiritual growth and development. Physically, a push to stay healthy, stay in shape, everything like that. Mentally, uh, you know, you see uh, the push to build and to learn new skills and to develop uh, as a man, uh, in masculine ways in alignment with the word, to grow food, everything like that. On a family level, you see the biblical example of the biblical family structure being lived out. So all these things, um, when I talked to the brothers, were evident. Uh, you know when they and were key in them becoming a part of this ministry. Okay. Um, Let me make sure the audio's good in the feed. Is the audio good? Y'all let me know in the comments. Let me just make sure the audio is good there. And I'll wait. I'll keep an eye on the comments to see. All right. But so everybody, you know, uh, across the board, this is generally the type of uh, comments and replies that we got. And it's evident, it's very evident when you look at this ministry. It champions biblical masculinity and biblical femininity. Um, like I said, you see it from leadership, you see it's just very evident. You see it from the fruits of the works. You see the works going forth. It's not just a bunch of talking and making videos, which is kind of, not even kind of, which is the norm today. When you go online and you look around, it's just everybody's just talking. You don't see anything moving forth. Uh, when I look at Straightway, I I see people act like it as deep as you want to go into walking this word out. You have an opportunity to do it here. I don't see that anywhere else. That's actually uh, one of the roadblocks I ran into early on in my awakening. Is I wanted to do more. And at the time, I thought the way to do more was to just do more videos. You know what I'm saying? Let me see how my audio is. Okay, they're saying the audio is good. Um, I wanted early on, I wanted to do more, but I didn't know what doing more was. Like I said, I thought I was doing more videos. Then after that, I said, hey, I got to go out and the way I can put in more work and really walk this thing out is doing what I would do is I'd put events on to get people out and to get them fellowshipping. So to get them offline out of their house and get them fellowship. And I did a couple events in Florida. Um, I was a part of some events in Georgia. And then I would go to different Hebrew Israelite events and promote them and all that stuff to help bring more people out, get them involved. Because at the time, that was the most work I could see to do. And then at one of those events, I ran into Straightway and uh, met Pastor Dow and the brothers and sisters of Straightway, and I, I immediately knew that was it. And my uh, my first impression of Straightway and the brothers and sisters were the same as um, what our brothers said when I posed this question to them. What their impressions were. Um, so then, after all the brothers answered this question, I asked them this. I said, why do people, why do some people resist conforming to the biblical principles and the ministry's established way of life? Okay. And what I wrote here is often people enter the ministry and become stagnant instead of taking action, growing, or developing necessary skills. They simply observe, remaining in their comfort zone rather than engaging as required. Okay. And as a head of assembly, I've seen this where some people, they come in, and most people, they come in, they take advantage of the opportunities that are there for spiritual growth, for mental growth. Mental growth, I mean, learning new skills, developing themselves as men or women. Um, for social growth, being around your brothers and sisters, communicating, learning to love your brothers, you love yourself, love your sisters, you love yourself. All these uh, opportunities are there to develop, but I watch a lot of people without, and my uh verbiage towards to the brothers was, I watch a lot of people literally fight this, even though this was why they came in. This is what they came in to, for. This is what they prayed about. This is what they had seeked out. And I got some good answers back. So this is what I wrote down. This is what it said. When inquiring why some resist aligning with the ministry standards, despite despite initially being drawn to them, a clear pattern emerged. While responses varied, the core reasons consistently pointed to fear and pride. People were often too entrenched in their comfort zone, unwilling to unwilling to put in the necessary work to change. So this little you call it this little question or experiment or whatever research I did, that was the conclusion that I arrived at, just listening to everybody's answers and their own observations, and not just in themselves but in what they've seen, in their years of being a part of the ministry. Um, so pride acts as a potent blind spot, preventing individuals from seeing their own deficiencies and areas needing growth. It fuels a false sense of completeness or superiority. And look, I could tell you, man, coming into this, I was like, okay, I see what's up. I could do this. I saw Pastor, saw how he was operating, and year goes by, and I'm like, man, this thing ain't as easy as it appears. 2 years go by, three. I think I've been a part of ministry like maybe 4 or 5 years, and I it's like you have a healthy respect for the leadership, particularly pastor. I, I, like you go through some things. You deal. He talks about dealing with humanity and stuff like that. Just human nature, that sin nature in people. Man, it can grind on you. And I think, man, he's been doing this going on what 30 years, being an example. And what I've seen, a lot of people stagnate. And when you stop moving forward, you just sit there and start looking around, and stuff creeps in, and you got to stay pressing forward. I got a show I'm gonna be doing probably this week on tenacity. Let me I'll read part the part of the show that I have written already, but you have to be tenacious, okay? And being you can't be timid in this thing, or like I like to say, tiptoe through the tulips. Like life ain't like that. uh Life will chew you up and spit you out. Like that's how the world is, that's how life is out there, and that's how we have to be as men in order to lead a family. A lot of us come from broken families and dysfunctional families that created trauma in our lives because there were not tenacious men standing guard. And a tenacious man isn't a timid man. He's not a gentle man. He's a tenacious man is going to be aggressive. He's going to stand guard. He's going to be vigilant. He's going to be confrontational. He's going to stand guard for that family, for those loved ones, and for his own mindset. That makes sense to you. Put a 100 up in there. Okay. Being tenacious. Here's some. This like the beginning of the show, I'm gonna read kind of the definition. Being tenacious refers to the quality of being persistent, determined, and unyielding, pursuing a goal, holding on to something, or overcoming challenges. Um, and what I think of is from a football standpoint, they talk about tenacious defense, where they're not yielding, man. They just holding that line. They're not letting that offense move forward 1 inch. They call it tenacious D, and they're pushing them back. Tenacious defense. Um, if you wanna, if you really want to get a good visual of that, just type in tenacious defense. Type that in YouTube. Maybe there's some videos on that, and it can really give you a visual of the aggression that a man needs to have in in first of all spiritual growth and development, and then the spiritual growth and development branches out into everything else. um so what I wrote here is pride, and again we're getting back on track with why people you know are arrested in their development, might not be growing and developing. This is based off just me talking to all the brothers in our assembly. Um, Pride acts as a potent, blind spot, preventing individuals from seeing their own deficiencies in areas needing growth. It fuels a false sense of completeness or superiority, making them resistant to feedback, unwilling to admit mistakes, and fearful of vulnerability. This self deception stunts personal development, trapping them in stagnation rather than embracing the challenging yet necessary path of self development or self improvement. Um, and you know, it's about humility. We're going to get into a bunch of humility scriptures, and you know, I think a lot of like the Bible tells you, count the cost. A lot of people come into this, and you got to really what I'm thinking about is me coming in. I really wanted to change some things about myself. There were things that I was aware of. There were things that I was unaware of that I knew I didn't know that I needed to change, that I wanted to change, that I want to operate on a higher level. And that's going to create that tenaciousness, that faith that keeps you locked in. You know what I'm saying? Um, so one of the other things that I observe, again, fear and pride. We just read about pride, but I also saw how they fear the furnace. Growth demands hardship. Many shrink from the pain of transformation. You do not grow in comfort, in the comfort zone. Growth doesn't happen here. I've said that many times. Growth happens in affliction. You don't like one of the things I said on Shabbat during praise and worship, everybody's righteous. Okay. But in the heat of the moment, when the pressure's on and emotions are high and thoughts, feelings, emotions are bubbling over, are you gonna still do what the word says? You know, um, when you're feeling some type of way, are you when you're feeling bad, are you gonna act bad? Or when you're feeling bad, are you gonna act righteous? That's a question. Okay. Um, So here's some other reasons why people get stagnated. Comfort is king. People cling to what's easy, avoiding the difficult steps of true alignment. Effort is avoided. Conforming to biblical principles requires work, discipline, and sacrifice. And this is qualities a lot of people lack. Um, you know, one of the things you see is like a lot of people who come out of the military or come out of some type of discipline um, profession. They it is not like such a shock, such a hit that there's rules and instructions and there's commandments and stuff like that that need to be followed. I mean, this is biblical culture straight up. You know what I'm saying? There's commandments all through the word. Um, when you read through the word, it's a very military way of the way things go. It says, the Lord is a man of war. You who is his name. It says, tells you to put on the whole armor of God. There's a lot of warfare analogies all throughout the word. Why? Because on a spiritual level, we are at war. And, you know, a lot of people don't want to, I'll put it like this: pride will prevent you from having that realization of what this is. Okay. Pride and fear will have you thinking, hey, this is Care Bears save the world. We all, everything should be good and this, that, and the other. No, there is warfare. And the way these spirits operate, they operate through people. They don't materialize out of nowhere and just start smacking you around. They operate around you and through you. So it's a whole another dimension of warfare, where it's warfare in your mind, is warfare's in other people's mind, and they're coming to attack. And literally there could be an attack in your own mind. And so it's full spectrum warfare. And this isn't the place to, tiptoe through the tulips and everything like that. Fear of the new. Stepping out of old patterns into a new biblically led life feels uncertain and daunting. So people are fearful of that. But you got to want it. The Most High has to put that desire, that urge in you to uh, to get righteous. Okay. Here's another one: surrendering personal will, dying to self. For Yah's way is a battle for those who want to dictate their own path. That self will, that flesh. Okay. We've built identities on so many things: our accomplishments, our relationships, our past experiences, our perceived strengths, even our weaknesses. And at the end of the day, when you look at the biblical alignment, when you look at what the word, like the word standard, and this idea we have of ourselves, at best, we're polished turds. We're just shiny turds. That's it. It's and again, it goes back to, you got to overcome pride with humility, and just learning putting a learning to ride the bike of humility and putting those training wheels on is like can be overwhelming if you've operated in pride. But when God's word comes in, it often exposes the cracks, the falsehoods, the self-deception, and the pride that has taken root in our hearts. We're born in sin, shaped in iniquity. My pet, my, you know, Like a lot of people like to reminisce on the past. Oh, it was so good back then, this, that, and I don't. I look forward to what's coming because in my past, I was so out of alignment with truth. It's nothing that I'm proud of that I lift up. I was, it's like you're so lost and deceived out there because, again, out there in the world, you are born in sin, shaped in iniquity. And we have to vigilantly become aware of this reality. Okay. So, so what I wrote here is this is where the discomfort sets in. It's the friction of growth. Okay. This is what people are pulling back from. You can think of a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. And inside that cocoon, or I think they call it a chrysalis, whatever, it that thing has to dissolve. It's a messy process in there. You know what I'm saying? It's a painful process. I guarantee you can go pull up videos about what that is like and how that works, and it's not, you know, uh, a beautiful thing. But what comes out of it is beautiful. Okay. Uh, Most people have never experienced the kind of genuine correction that springs from true love, agape love. And agape love is where you're concerned about the well-being of someone else. Okay? Consequently, when they do encounter this true love, their knee-jerk response is often to reject it. Okay? Um, Many individuals struggle to accept the uncomfortable emotions that accompany correction and true humility. They're not yet willing to endure the crushing feeling of confronting a flawed self perception. So, this flawed idea of who you think you are. And then again, when you come into a ministry or an assembly, a home assembly, um, it's iron sharpening iron. That's one of the main purposes of it is for people to get in alignment. And inevitably, you come into this thing. I can tell you, me as a head of assembly, living in a home assembly, being married, living in a home assembly, as the years have progressed in doing this on a larger and larger level, I see more and more things that I have to work on, that I have to get in order, that I have to get in alignment. And only if you're blind will you not have that type of experience. And but this is what I asked for. I asked for it. I wanted to grow and develop and get in alignment with the Most High's word. And it's just a humbling experience as the years go on doing this. And again, for those brothers, sisters, for the leadership that has been doing this for more years than me, as I move in my years of living according to the way the Bible tells us to live, as I move forward, I have more and more respect towards those brothers, sisters, leadership that have done this for more years, particularly the leadership, because you see, and it's like your discernment and perception rises to a higher level. It's like I can look at certain leaders in the ministry and see certain qualities in them that could have only been forged being on living among the saints. You can see it. You can see it. Okay. Uh, so it says they're not yet willing to endure the crushing feelings of confronting a flawed self perception or realizing that their own self ideology is incorrect. Like I'm telling you about myself, like there's stuff I've seen. It's like, man, and then you'll see stuff that's like, again, you have to be tenacious because you're gonna become aware of certain things in yourself that are Goliaths that you have to face in yourself, that are your Mount Everest. Something is like, okay, I better start climbing this little by little. Don't get discouraged, don't get overwhelmed by it. This resistance often stems from pride and fear, which act as significant blockages to genuine growth and development. There has to be humility. Like, you're not going to get anywhere with being prideful. It's just, again, you're going to be blind to everything. Let's get in the word and read what the word says about humility. We're going to start with James chapter 4, verse 6. But he giveth more grace. Wherefore he saith, God resisteth the proud, but give grace unto the humble. James chapter 4:10. Humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and he will lift you up. Okay. First Peter chapter 5, verse 6. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time. Luke 14:11. For whosoever exalteth himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. Proverbs 11:2. When pride cometh, then cometh shame, but with the lowly is wisdom. Okay. Proverbs, and like I said, this isn't even getting into Sirach Ecclesiasticus. Proverbs 22:4. By humility and the fear of the Lord are riches and honor and life. Okay. Um, Philippians chapter 2, verse 3. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem other better than himself. Okay. Then better than themselves. Um, let's see what else we got. Okay, Second Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14. Because again, as a nation, throughout our history in the Bible, this is something we wrestle with. And listen to what Yah is saying here. He said, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Okay. So that's on us as a nation. Um, okay, let's see what else we got here. Uh, so when we talk about humbling ourselves, okay, it says to humble yourself is a multifaceted concept. So there's different parts to humbling yourself, especially in a biblically humbling yourself. Um, and it's not a sign of weakness. Instead, it's power. It's a powerful act of accurate self-perception and submission to a higher authority, leading to genuine growth and favor. So it's submitting to the Most High Yah. So starts with acknowledging your true place before the Most High. Um, Admitting dependence. This is a big one. You recognize that you are not self sufficient. Again, this is why we come together as an assembly and have all things in common. Love our brothers as we love ourselves. Um, so, letting go of pride. We talked about that earlier. Um, okay. It talks about the another big area of humility is embracing correction and discomfort. Okay. Um, so a humble person is receptive to constructive criticism, even when it's uncomfortable, seeing it as an opportunity for growth rather than a personal attack. And like I said, I've been in situations where, like one of the examples I give all the time is at my job, I had a supervisor come out aggressively, get up in my face, and yell at me for working on. I think I was filling wings. I was sealing wings up, and I was working on the wrong plane. He thought I was working on the wrong plane. And he like, didn't I just tell you to work on that one? This, that, and the other, blah, 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 pointing in my face, all that stuff. And I was like, yes, sir, I'll go over there because the rule I came up with at that job that, hey, I'm gonna do whatever they tell me, even if it's wrong, as long as it's not gonna compromise anybody's life or damage the equipment. You know what I'm saying? I don't. If I waste time, I waste time. So I said, yes, sir. And I went over there and did what he told me. And then he came back out his office and he was like, man, I am so sorry. He's like, you were right. He's like, why didn't you say anything? I was gonna go back and forth with you. And he was like, well, I'm sorry. And like after that, he never like he I had favor from that day on with that supervisor. And that was one of the most notorious supervisors for putting people out the gate and not taking crap from people. And but from that day on, I had favor with him. And the other thing, because again, this is the power of humility. Um, the other thing was there was a guy in the bay right next to mine. He watched that whole thing go down, and he was like, "Yo," he was like, because him and that supervisor were always arguing and bumping heads. And he was like, man, I want to know what you just did. I want that. And I'm like, I grabbed that verse where it says, servants be obedient to your masters, even the froward. So even the difficult. And that verse goes on to say, because even Jesus being wrongfully accused, he didn't go back and forth. He took it humbly. And that verse also says, because it's no big deal that if you are wrong, that you take that humbly, like that's no big deal. But when you're wrongfully accused, it's on a whole nother level. So that's basically what that verse says. So I showed him that Bible verse, and then I looked at him, and I could see something on his face where he was like, "Man, you real about that book?" He could respect that, but I could see he wasn't gonna do that. And what ended up happening, I guess a couple months later, he ended up getting transferred to another shift. It got uglier, his relationship with that supervisor. Am I saying I'm Mr. Super Meek and super humble? Heck no. I'm working on my flesh too. My junk rise up. I get I am not like I don't walk around like some Okay, look like this thing had went out for a sec. The stream. Let me know how the stream is in the comments, y'all. But no, I'm not. That's not how I am. I have emotions, thoughts, feelings, emotional impulses that pop up and try to tempt me to act out and all that. But I'm aware of it. I know I'm not perfect. I get on here and tell you I'm not perfect. But even in the heat of those emotions, all that, I it's the word don't just go get thrown out the window. Sometimes I gotta pull back. Sometimes I just gotta pay attention to those thoughts, feelings, emotions, and bring them under control. What it says, bringing into captivity every thought that exalts itself against the knowledge of Yah. This is part of that warfare. And like I said, a lot of people who heavily identify with feelings, when their feelings well up, their thought, their logical, spiritual thought goes out the window. And again, I did a show, Courage Under Fire. You have to be able to still think when fear's present, when pride's present, when all these other strong impulses and emotions are present in your mind. This is that. This is again. This is that gold being tried in the fire. I've named a bunch of the Bible verses where it's talking about this, and this is the battlefield. This is where the bullets fly at. You know, it doesn't happen during praise and worship service or on Shabbat when everything's uh, good and you're getting recharged. This happens in the furnace of adversity. How do you behave? How do you react? Are you really about this walk? That's the question to ask. Uh, so yeah. Um, but yeah, I wanted to come on and just bring that out to y'all. Um, and just you know just come down the middle with this because look, I realize you know the growth and what you learned is not going to stick unless you utilize it in adverse situations, in adversity. Unless, like, when you're in adversity and the pressure's on, and that still small voice says, "Hey, maybe you shouldn't do that," and your emotions like like that, and you listen to that small voice of righteousness. You listen to the Holy Spirit. That's doing this. You're lifting weights. You're getting that. You're working that muscle. And as you know, when you're lifting weights, it don't feel good. Well, you when you're going through your sets and you get into them last sets, it real hard. Your muscles are burning. Your arms are shaking. The weight's barely moving, and you're trying to push that weight up. But uh, but that is, and that might be in your set that you're doing. You might be doing 10 reps. Well, the 8 reps go quick. Them last two, they're slow, they're painful, but that's where the real growth and the muscle development happens at. Same thing spiritually. In those moments where it's real difficult, and you make a conscious decision to be obedient and to operate according to what the word says. That's where the growth and development happens. I'm telling you. And this is why you see a lot of people, they are stagnant, because what happens when they even anticipate something's getting ready to go to a uncomfortable level, they're already making moves to, you know, get out of it. So, and to avoid it. Okay. So whatever that might be, that might be a whole nother show. But anyway, y'all, that is all I got. I appreciate all y'all tuning in. I'm Michael Israel. You're watching Spiritual Combat, and shalom, shalom.